professional nerd. This is my legitimate business card that I give out to people. Professional contacts know me as a dinosaur girl, but it didn't always used to be this way. Oh, it's not started? Question mark? Oh no, yeah it is. I didn't always know that I could feel this way and could be making money doing what I love, so I wanted to share some of that with you and help you guys find out how you want to be. So if you've known me for any length of time, it's pretty clear that I'm a nerd, that I was always going to be doing something with games or animation, comics, but I didn't know that. I always felt like there was some boundary between the people making the things that I loved and me. But when I was 14, I was introduced to Sailor Moon, and it made a huge impact on my life. It introduced me to Japanese culture. It made me start taking the language and really getting involved in this amazing culture that I loved and I never knew existed. So I took Japanese all throughout high school and college, and finally I was getting ready to graduate, and I went into my career center and I asked them, all right, what opportunities are there for Japanese majors? And they asked me, do you want to be a diplomat? And I said no, and they sort of smiled at me, and that was the end of the conversation. So I was feeling pretty confused and alone, and I had the unfortunate experience of graduating right in the recession. So I did a lot of this. I really, with all the free time I had from not really having a job, I went back to what I loved. I played a lot of video games, and I started to notice that the stories in these games were, fitting my life at the moment. So I'd like to take you through one of my favorite games, The Secret of Monkey Island, and show you some of the lessons I learned and how I applied them to my life. So the protagonist of Monkey Island is a guy named Guybrush Threepwood, and he has a very particular dream that you're going to see in the next slide, but he is not cut out for it, and I understood that feeling of not really, knowing what you wanted to do, but not being ready for it. So I think the very first step is admitting out loud what you want to be and what you want to do. Admitting it to yourself, admitting it to your friends and family, to anyone who will listen. It makes the dream really real. It makes it something that is an actual goal that you can go towards. So for me, it was games. This is not mine, but I love it. I identify with this so much. But I still didn't know how to get from point A to point B. Sure, I knew I wanted to make games and work in games, but it still felt so far. So the first step for me was to figure out what did I need to get there, and I started asking around. When I was at New York Comic Con, I asked the editor of Kodansha Manga, how they did their localization. I was working in localization at the time, and he said they used freelancers. So in the gutsiest thing I've ever done, I gave him my card and said, if you need a freelance proofreader. And it turned into a professional relationship that still continues. So the second step, after admitting what you love, is figuring out what you need. It may be skills, it may be experience, it may be a new location. Guybrush needs a sword. It's really going to depend on what it is you do, but it gives you a framework and it gives you a map to get from point A to point B. So for me, it was going back to Japan. I'd lost a lot of my language after graduation, and so I quit my full-time job and moved. And to be honest, it felt like this a lot. It was a huge experience for me, but I learned so much by being there, being in the moment, meeting people, and I started to gain confidence in who I am. And so this is a photo of the Patakucha in Tokyo. They have a preset slides, and they invite anybody who wants to come up and try and explain what they see on the screen. I was lucky enough to get a Star Wars slide. It was really exciting. But I would never have had the confidence to do this had I not made these huge changes in my life and really figured out what I wanted to do. So the next step is to find your network, find your support network, people who can help you, give you the resources you need to succeed, make you feel better. It may be your family, your friends, your very annoying but friendly cat, whoever it is that gives you that confidence and that learning to be who you want to be. And for me, it's these folks. These are the volunteers that help put together Game Developers Conference every year in San Francisco. It's a network. These are about 400 or 500 people every year, but they change. It's been going on for 25 years. You guys can kind of do the math. They're all professionals in the field, and they've taught me so much about what the industry is like. They're the ones that helped me make my business card, and without them, I would not be here today. So the next step is self-doubt. I think that self-doubt is really important. I sure spend a lot of time with it. But it's something that gives you an opportunity to reframe and make sure what you're doing is really working, helping you work towards your goals. And what happens after you doubt yourself for a while is that when you have a big win, it's really exciting. So this is Kodansha Comics' re-release of the Sailor Moon manga, and I proofread volume 10. I officially worked on Sailor Moon, and it brought together a real change in my life, and thank you, validated my career choices. And so, every time you have a big win, it's good to acknowledge how far you've come, see what your achievements are, and really, congratulate yourself. Take a second to celebrate, have chocolate, drink some wine, have a beer, whatever it is that makes you really, understand how far you've come. But you can't enjoy yourself too long or you'll get complacent. So then you start over again. It's all a process. You figure out your next steps. It may be, again, new skills, new experience. It may be what you need in that exact moment to get you out of whatever situation you're in. But it's always a continuing process, and it's the same for me as well. One of the really exciting things I had happen recently is that this year's Game Developers Conference, I got to meet Brian Moriarty, who had worked on Secret of Monkey Island and Loom, and tell him, how much I appreciated his work, not only as a fan, but as a professional, as somebody in the same industry as him, as a colleague almost, and that was really exciting to be able to do. And now for the future, for me, it's losing games. This is the hardest game I've played in a long time, and it probably doesn't look like it. But what I'm doing right now is, working and researching visual novels, and probably going to start making my own games this summer. So I hope I've given you a framework to, realize your passions and go forth them. And thank you for coming today.